Biology is alive. I mean, it's, you get to play with things that are living and replicating and I mean, who wouldn't want to do that? But I think the most important thing I appreciate about the field of biology is that it's repeatable. The investigations that you do, the experiments that you perform are repeatable. And so, not so much with paleontology or geology. Those are sort of whodunit sciences. You're trying to find the culprit when all you have is a series of clues. But in biology, you can study over and over and over, and you can go deeper each time you study because you have a living system that you're working with. And so it's a repeatable science, and to me, that's more science than the other sciences are. You have to stay true to what is observed, and you can be critiqued, which is really what your papers, when you publish them, should be. This is why peer review is so important. And you can be critiqued by people who may know the science of biology a little better than you do because they've been in it longer. Maybe they've studied more than you. So it keeps you honest. It really keeps you honest. So it's more honest of all of the sciences, I think. I've done a lot of work with microscopes in the creation evolution controversy. I've been involved in this for many years now. And I started working in the design area. And so I pointed my microscope at things like diatoms, which are fabulously designed, microscopic. They're called the jewels of the sea. Tiny little geometric shapes made out of glass, pure glass, by single-celled plants. And so I did a series of papers on diatoms and some study on those. And then I decided that I should go after the time issue, deep time. You see, evolution is a structure supported by basically two pillars. One is chance and one is time. Chance is required because we obviously cannot say that a thinking entity, a living God, whatever you want to call him, a thinking force, created life on earth. That's anathema to those who are called materialists, who say only the stochastic random chance of materialism, matter acting on matter, erosion, wind action, those kind of things produced life. If you kick out one of those two pillars, the whole structure of evolution collapses. If you kick out the pillar of chance by showing incredible design, then the structure of evolution starts to totter and it may crash and fall, because you cannot have design in a world that is not supposed to have a designer. The other pillar is time, deep time, deep time. You cannot get a man from a frog in a short period of time, unless the princess kisses the frog, and we call that a fairy tale. And so that's not science. But in science, you have to have deep time to get evolution. In fact, the more you look at the design in living systems, the more time you need. And so you may have noticed that in 1950, the age of the Earth was 1 billion years, maybe. If you look at the geology textbooks from the 1950s, the age of the Earth is 1 billion years. Well, what's the age of the Earth today? Well, 4.6 billion years. So the Earth has had huge birthdays in the last, 50, 150 years. Why? Because they need deep time. They are committed to deep time. So I thought, I'm going to point my microscope at phenomena that reflect on deep time. And I've been very successful at it. I've done work on radio halos. I've done work on diamonds and radio halos in diamonds. Now, I know I'm saying some things to your viewers that they might not understand. But what I want to impress them with is that the evolutionists understand what I'm talking about. And they've come after me. So I've done published work in these areas. Helium in rocks. We did a whole series of studies on helium that should have escaped the rocks. Radioactivity causes helium. Radioactivity produces helium. I could go into a long discussion about it, but I bore everybody to death. But the bottom line is radioactive minerals in the earth produce helium. Now, helium is a gas. In fact, it's a very interesting gas. It doesn't make compounds with other atoms. It's called a noble gas because it's noble and it doesn't associate with other gases. It's very funny when you think about it. But you can put it in a balloon or you can put it in a dirigible and float that thing. Now, we've all received a birthday balloon, a helium balloon, right? And somebody gives you that balloon and you're all excited and you tie it to your bedpost and you're looking at it as you go to sleep and you wake up in the morning, where's the balloon? Well, it's on the floor. Well, why is my helium balloon on the floor? Oh, because it lost strength overnight and it just got tired of holding up the balloon. No, it escaped the balloon. That's what helium does. It's a slippery gas. And so in order to keep it in a container, you got to really tighten that container. Back to the rocks and the helium in the rocks. Why is that significant? Well, because if the Earth is billions and billions of years old, all the radioactivity that took place over that billions of years produced helium, and all that helium shouldn't be in the rocks. But we found up to 60% of the helium produced still in the rocks. What does that mean? It means the Earth has to be young. Can't be old and still retain all that helium. It's a slippery gas. So I pointed my microscope at that. But you know, these explanations on things about deep time are hard for people. I get it. I start talking about radioactivity and people start yawning and looking out the window. I get that. And so years ago, I started thinking, well, what can I find that goes after deep time, but that everybody can understand? And then I started reading the work of Mary Schweitzer. And I saw that not only Mary Schweitzer, but others before her had been exposing to the scientific community there is soft tissue in dinosaur bones. In fact, Roman Pawlicki from a university in Poland has been publishing about soft tissue in dinosaur bones since the 60s. Most people are shocked to hear that. Why? Because it's not in the literature. Nobody talks about it. Why? People don't want to talk about it. Why? Because it destroys deep time. Soft tissue in dinosaur bones destroys deep time. Dinosaur bones cannot be old if they're full of soft tissue. And I made a prediction back in 2012 or 2011 that soft tissue in the dinosaur record, in the fossil record, is going to be the rule rather than the exception. And it's coming true every day. New discussions, new discoveries of soft tissue are coming about. And so I went after that pillar of time because I think that that is the linchpin. It's the Achilles heel of evolution. If you don't have deep time, you don't have evolution. The whole discussion of evolution ends if you show that the Earth is young. Evolution you can erase it off the whiteboard because things like soft tissue and dinosaur bone, and we're not talking just goopy stuff. I've had these professors critique me and say, well, he found some goopy stuff. No. Look at the cells that I've been finding, the actual bone cells, and things that other people have been finding that show that no decay happened. Well, how is that possible? Even, I'm mystified because I don't even understand how these bones could be 4,000 or 4,500 years old or 5,000. We don't, when did the flood occur? I don't know. We have some guesstimates, but we don't know for sure. But even if the flood happened 1,000 years ago, why am I finding these kind of cells? One of the charges that's frequently leveled at soft dinosaur tissue and was leveled at Mary Schweitzer. In fact, most people don't realize that when she first submitted her papers for publication, the editors said, we're not going to publish this. Well, why not? Well, we know it's not true. Well, what evidence are you willing to accept? None. That's what they said to Mary Schweitzer. Now, thank God she's gotten her publications out there, and she's done marvelous work. I really have to say, she's done some incredible work. Now, maybe not so much with the iron paper, which we'll talk about, but I think with characterizing what she's actually found that proves that these are original dinosaur tissues, I think her work is outstanding. I wish I had her lab, and I wish I had her expertise, and I wish I had all of her technicians. Unfortunately, it's me, myself, and I trying to do this work. But contamination is a big critique. Now let's understand this. The cells that we're looking at are bone cells. They are inside the bone. They're what make the bone, dissolve the bone, and refashion the bone. In fact, this is going on constantly. Your bones are under constant refashioning. Someone has said that your entire skeleton is replaced every 12 years. Completely replaced. What does that? It's these bone cells. Fabulous little cells that not only do this bone reshaping and repairing, they'll repair your bones. You know, you get a fracture, the doctor approximates your two bones together and puts a cast on you, and what happens? The bone cells get in there and they repair it. They're amazing. Now, if I'm looking at bone cells and their contamination, I contend that these are dinosaur bone cells. People say, no, it's contamination. Now think through this with me, okay? You have a dinosaur bone, maybe on the surface of the Badlands in Montana, maybe a little bit below the surface. But you're not looking at bone cells from the dinosaur, you're looking at bone cells from some other living creature that has bones, right? So what could it be? Maybe a bird, a hawk, was going after a mouse or a rabbit in the Montana sky, and so he misjudged and he smashed into the ground, killed himself, broke a wing in the process. So now the bone cells crawled out of the bird wing, found their way through the soil, found the bone, crawled into the bone, and lined up in just the perfect way that we always find bone cells. Not only are they lined up, they're interconnected. They have these little thread feet that come out and touch each other. Why? Because they're all interconnected. All of these bone cells are talking to each other. And they do that through these nano-sized, amazing little Philippodia, thread feet. And so it's preposterous. It's preposterous for the contamination charge to even be considered. Now, another charge that was leveled was the biofilm contamination charge. You're not looking at bone cells. You're looking at basically bacteria poop that formed itself to look exactly like bone cells. Come on. Okay, do bacteria make poop? Yes. Okay, it's called biofilm. They live in it. It's kind of a gross thought. But it's kind of a sugary, sort of slimy coating that coats once living material because they're consuming it. And as they're consuming it, they're producing waste, and the waste makes this nice little home that they live in. But somehow, some way, the bacteria figured out, and this would be a Nobel Prize, folks. This would be a Nobel Prize. The bacteria figured out how to turn their poop into exactly what they're eating. Okay, that would be a Nobel Prize. So that's preposterous on its face. But secondly, Mary Schweitzer proved beyond a doubt that the proteins she was finding were not bacterial proteins. They were mammalian proteins, reptilian proteins, I should say. Reptilian-like, because dinosaurs, they're not reptiles. They are in a sense, but just a little bit different. And so she destroyed that argument. Finding dinosaur tissues is staggering. If you go back and look at the early reactions that people like Mary Schweitzer had, these things can't be there. In their paradigm, in their frame of thinking, in their philosophy of an Earth that's billions of years old, and that slow materialistic processes slowly buried these organisms one by one, and they survived the ravages of time only by becoming hard rock. I've heard the charge that soft tissues are just an anomaly. Well, if they're an anomaly, why do we keep finding them? In fact, I work with a scientist who has dinosaur bones thin sectioned. Now you can't just cut a bone, especially if it's hard rock. You know, if it's a fossil, it's fossilized, it's permineralized, all of the biological molecules have been exchanged with hard rock, and so it's become hard rock. Kind of like petrified wood, right? You get that image in your mind. You can't just thin section it. You have to grind it down. So you take a piece of rock, bone, that you want thin so you can look at it through the microscope, and you put it on a diamond wheel and you grind it and grind it and grind it till it's very, very thin, about half the diameter of a human hair in thickness. And these labs that he buys his slides from are constantly having to throw away specimens because they have too much soft tissue in them. Now, they don't report this. They told him about it. They're finding it all the time in every bone, it seems, that they've looked at. And interestingly, you would expect soft tissue to be found in a bone that's in the dirt. We call it the matrix. It's been stabilized in that dirt for who knows how long. And so it's kind of protected. You would expect that. But they're pulling bones out of museum drawers that have been in a museum drawer for 100 years, and they are still yielding soft tissue. So this is prevalent everywhere. And that's why I made my prediction that no matter where we look in the fossil record, we're going to find soft tissue in dinosaur remains. So it's important because everybody loves dinosaurs, okay? It's not just the kids. Grandpas love dinosaurs. I'm a grandpa and I love dinosaurs. Dinosaurs get everybody's attention. Every time they discover a new dinosaur, wow, we want to read about it and find out about it. Dinosaurs have been used. Dinosaurs are the poster child for evolution. It's what they hung their hat on dinosaurs. All of our understanding about ancient life comes from the dinosaurs because these remains are there and we can study them and understand how long they were there and what killed them. You know, a meteor that smashed into the earth. I mean, these stories are ridiculous. Why? They're not based on any observable fact. It's like I said previously, it's based on who done it. But it gets everybody's attention. And so it's really fun because when I'm in the grocery store line and the cashier says, "How are you today?" I say, "I'm great. I went on a dinosaur dig." Now suddenly, everybody in the line is looking at me. Why? They want to go on a dinosaur dig. They haven't been on a dinosaur dig, and now suddenly there's a guy standing here telling them about the dinosaur dig that he went on. So they're interested. And then I say, we found a 40-inch plus long Triceratops horn. I do this with my hand to put a word picture in their minds. We found a 40-inch long Triceratops horn, and it was loaded with soft tissue. And I wait, because I see the wheels turning in their heads. I see the jaws dropping a little bit because they're processing what I just told them. Very few people know about soft tissue in dinosaur bones. And this is why the evolutionists are working so hard to cover this up, to poo-poo it, to demonize those who are in the field. And this field is a career killer, okay? If you want to lose your career in one easy step, go on a dinosaur dig and talk about the soft tissue in it. So it's big, it's huge, it's important. Most of the tissues that we find in the dinosaur are desiccated and mummified, but they've not turned to rock. And some of the actual original proteins are still there. So if we're finding proteins in dinosaur remains, and I got to tell you, we took the soft tissue and we sent it to a company that does chemistry on human tissues. And they did what they call a Chem 20 panel. When you get your blood taken and the doctor says, I want to see everything that's going on, we did that and we found cholesterol and we found LDL and HDL. And we're talking whole molecules. And so if that kind of stuff is present in dinosaur bones, which may not have survived much past the flood, I mean, we really don't know. There might be dinosaurs alive today.